Meeting number 317 of TMG Dayton, and this is our opening meeting for this year. Hope everybody had a better summer than I did. So with that said, do we have any visitors today? Any new? Okay. We were supposed to have a new member show up today, but we don't. Okay, so I'm going to say good morning.
Good morning.
Okay.
Good morning.
Now we got.
Good morning. Good morning.
Okay. Now we're good. Okay, let's start with news. Does anybody have any news items they want to share with the members? Rick Cartwright looks tired.
A lot gone on this week.
Okay.
Apple released all kinds of cool stuff. I won't say anything more today, but a lot of cool stuff.
Okay. The one thing that I like is that in the coming iOS, they're going to have crash detection. So when I'm working on my Windows servers remotely, I can tell, no, I guess they're talking about whether an automobile is crashed or not. Okay, with that said, anybody else got anything they want to share with the members? Going once, going twice? I'm not hearing anything from my Zoom gallery. I'm not hearing anything.
One thing we should mention is,
Yes.
Apple is making a big change to Apple Care, and it's going to be a lot better. And they sent an email out. If you have anything that's under Apple Care, you probably got an email.
Yeah.
And they are really up in the game.
Yeah. So with that said, I'm going to move on to HomeKit Minute and let Dan Wyckoff talk to you for a little bit. I'm going to move out of the way.
All right, well, really busy this week.
Phyllis is
Sit
right.
here
Okay, sit here.
so they can
All
see
right,
you.
all right,
And I'm going to
all right.
take that one down. Can you guys see the desktop now in Zoom land?
Yeah.
Well, so I didn't get a chance to prepare an example of this, but for those people that have a definite need, I thought I'd share this. Last year, or earlier this year, I talked about a motion sensor from Fabaro, and perhaps you have a loved one that is not ready to give up their independence, and I know Apple has a lot of methodology that would, especially for Apple Watch or the Apple iPhone, that would accommodate people that are in distress. But perhaps your loved one doesn't have a phone or a watch, and the idea of having a camera in their house to keep monitoring on them is a little bit too intrusive. So there is a way to automate the process just to keep tabs on whether they're staying active or not. And it's really, some people, they're concerned that this whole idea spawned because this week my 84-year-old mother-in-law broke her hip. Now fortunately, she's in a extended household with my brother-in-law, and she was able to get help from them. But say your loved one, God forbid, passes away in the middle of the night, and they're at a distance away from your house. You can't just drive over there every day, and so you wanted something less intrusive than a camera, or just trying to get a hold of my phone. So if you need a motion sensor, any kind. This one, anything that's compatible with HomeKit, and then a smart switch. Just a device that would plug into an outlet that would control, say, a light fixture or something.
Here's what I found.
No, thanks, Siri. The idea is that the motion sensor would trigger the smart switch to turn on if it senses motion. So your loved one is up and at 'em, and it triggers the motion sensor. It then triggers the smart switch. Now there's nothing plugged into the smart switch. It's just going from an off state to an on state. And then you can write scripts in shortcuts on your phone that would then monitor that switch. And if it doesn't recognize or it doesn't find that the switch is on, will send you a text at a certain time period. So you could have it monitor that switch, say, every 4 hours, and if it notices that it's on, you can have it turn it off to start the next cycle. So that way you could get an idea on whether your loved one or your friend or whoever you're monitoring, your friend is up and around, and then you don't have to have the intrusiveness of a camera in their home. So some people would find that very odd that, you've got a third party, watching them, surreptitiously or whatever. So if you're interested, I can give you some more information, but I just thought I'd introduce that idea. If you have elderly relatives or another party that you find yourself in that situation, please contact me and I can give you more information. So, thanks, that's it. More than a minute, sorry.
Clicking, got it. So just one other thing to remind you is that if you have older iPhones or older cell phones that work, Android, whatever, and you no longer need them, and you're not going to, with the Apple stuff, recycle it through Apple, one of the things that Dan Wyckoff does is he does collect those at meetings, and he has a missionary that he knows is who makes use of those older devices. Okay, so with that said, I'm going to go back real quick to our agenda and go back to the welcome. Oh, wait. It's Ray Rachford. I thought it was a new member that walked in. Okay, never mind. We'll go ahead. So the next thing's going to be freebies wanted for sale. So on the table, we have a variety of Belk and Wemo devices that Rick Cartwright brought, Rick Cartwright brought in, and we have some older Apple Express, Apple Airport Extremes that were brought in by Dick Kugler. Kogler? You know,
I know, you can't get over it, can you?
Kogler?
There's just too many Kuglers in
Which
the
one?
area.
Which one do you prefer?
Oh, there's only one, Kogler.
Kogler.
There's one O, and it's a long O. so it's
Okay.
Kogler.
Kogler.
Now, if you want to say it as the Germans would spell it, it's K-O.
Not
umlaut,
going
so-
German.
There is an Airport Express over there that kind of plugs into the outlet, as well as the two extreme.
I
or
think
three
it's already
extreme.
been taken.
Oh, that one's been, well, one of them was taken. I think the plugging one might still be.
Okay, so anyway, so we
But they're
have
free.
those. If no one wants them that's physically here at the meeting, I will probably pick them up, take them home, and bring them to the meeting next month. And with that said,
I have one more thing.
oh, Rick
I
Cartwright.
have an Apple Watch Series 4 that I'm gonna sell to Apple if nobody wants it. If somebody's interested in buying it, if you match Apple's thing, I'd be glad to sell it for the price that. It's like $7, $50, something like that.
Okay, how soon do you need to know?
I think probably the next few days, because they're gonna send me my new Watch Friday, and I'm trading that in Friday.
Okay. Okay, so if you're interested in purchasing an older Apple Watch Series 4 from Rick Cartwright, email him directly. Moving right along, we're gonna go to the help desk. I'm gonna start with the Zoomies. Does anybody out there in Zoom land have a question for the help desk or some illumination to provide the rest of the members?
Start over.
She's muted now.
Okay, I'm gonna go to the audience here then. Does anybody here have a help desk issue they want to bring up?
I just need a cord.
Okay. That's a Porsche design external hard drive.
Yes,
power cord?
I need the power cord.
It's actually a brick.
It's
How many
It's actually
pins?
a power brick. It's a big honking thing with cable on the other end and the power cord on the other.
supply.
And
I
I
have
think
to-
I have one at home, but it's in the junk pile, oh, excuse me, legacy equipment pile.
That's the one. It's got 4 holes.
Yeah, it's the ones that, I'm having a senior moment here. I've got some.
Okay, because I don't need it permanently, I just need to get whatever's on there off. I just think they're old family pictures, I'd like to see what it is.
Okay,
Well, we could take the case and take it apart, take the hard drive out and retrieve the stuff off of it.
Well, if you show me how to do that, I'll do it.
that's the Porsche design. Those are not easy to get over.
We'll take a hammer
I don't
to
even
it.
know how you get it open.
You gotta have a spluter and you gotta have a jimmy
I
knife to
think
get
just
them over.
finding a cord would probably be better.
Those screws,
easy
huh?
opening. No screws.
No, there's not, it doesn't use screws.
Right under the feet.
The feet aren't very big.
Are you gonna be south at all anytime soon?
Oh, I can whenever, yeah.
Okay, I'll just send you a text
Okay.
when I find it and then.
That'd be
you
great.
we'll
That'd be
either
great.
meet
And
up
I
at
can
the
get it
end.
back to you or pay for the cord, whatever works for you. Thank you, sir.
I talked to my retirement advisor.
Okay.
I think I can let you have, at little or no cost to you,
Okay.
a power cord, because I think it's covered under Medicare Plan F.
All right. All right.
Okay, anyway,
Thank you.
anybody else have a help desk item here? Going once, going twice. Hi, Kathy. Kathy Wassenich just raised her hand. Go ahead, Kathy.
I just have a point of interest, like, that you told me to wait to buy my new laptop.
Yeah.
Is this the time, or should I wait longer?
Did you decide whether you wanted to go with the MacBook Pro or the MacBook Air?
The Pro.
Okay, it's heavier than the Air, and the screens are almost the same now,
Okay.
and the Air costs less,
Yeah, but
even though it's more powerful than the current MacBook Pro. So, yeah, my wife's going to be buying a new MacBook Air M2 this weekend. Maybe she'll do her iPad first. Anyway, if you're doing iMac stuff, I would wait until October. Okay.
now, are they going to make a new desktop or no?
Well, we'll find out. It all has to do with what happened with supply issues.
It's a timing issue. I mean, they'll make one, it's just,
Yeah.
maybe a year.
Yeah. So, I'm anticipating, currently the 24-inch iMac uses your first M1, if I remember correctly. Am I correct, Rick?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm anticipating they'll come out with various flavors, so you'll have the M2 iMac, the M2 Max, the M2 Pro, the M2 Pro Ultra, or whatever other combination they come out with.
Sure, thank you.
But if you're looking at laptop time, again, the one that I suggest to people right now is the MacBook Air M2 that has the MagSafe power cord instead of the USB-C power cord. I can't tell you how many times my wife at school has told me about students that have tripped and pulled somebody's laptop off because it's, not MagSafe anymore. Okay,
Real quick, Bill.
Yes.
If you can't find a power
Yeah.
adapter for that, they're on eBay.
Oh, good, good.
I just looked on eBay and there's a whole bunch of them.
All right,
So
what do I look for?
just search for power supply for the brand and model number.
Oh, okay.
I did
Well, I don't have a pop, yes, I should.
You'll feel it.
Should be on it.
Hey, Rick, I tried.
I found them.
Did you?
Yeah.
Because I couldn't find it, but I took the
There-
model. Is it
Well, I didn't know if I
4
had the right model. They had 4 pins, they got a brown one, they got a whole bunch of them.
Thank you.
Anybody else for help desk? Going once, going twice? Okay. Anybody in Zoomy land? You're watching the gallery, right?
Yeah,
Okay, nobody in Zoomy?
nobody has a hand up.
Okay, then I'm going to move on to the raffle.
That felt good for a while.
Welcome. My presentation is Best NAS Network Attached Storage Options for iPad, iPhone, and Mac users. And I probably should have named it Best Network Attached Storage Options for Apple users. So we're talking about network storage. Give me 1 second here. Okay, I'm going to have to wing it since I can't see my meeting notes in the screen that I'm in Keynote. Network attached storage. Okay, so the first thing to remember is I am not here to sell you more stuff. Okay? NAS devices are really neat, interesting things, but not everybody needs a NAS. And NASs are very personal devices, depending on what you want to do with it. So there's no way I can tell you this is the best network storage device available. All I can say is, tell me what you want to do with that NAS device. Okay, so with those caveats in place, moving forward. As always, you never can present enough information in the 35 minutes that we have for a presentation. So there's additional resources that will be emailed out to you, and there's 4 PDFs. The first is Best NAS for Mac for households and small, medium businesses. That's what SMB stands for. The next one is the Before Best NAS Devices for Most Home Users in 2022, and that's from Wirecutter, which is part of the New York Times, if I remember correctly. And then we have Best Network Attached Storage 2022, and that's from the IGN network. And then last but not least, Mac Setup and Access for Network Drives, and that's from the good folks at Acronis. And again, you don't have to go looking for them. They'll be emailed out with the after-meeting email to the members. All right, so let's start with what is a NAS? Okay. Oh, goodness. Another 3-letter acronym, just what you needed. I'm going to actually give you 2. Have you ever taken a flash drive or an external hard drive and plugged it into your computer and then accessed the data on that device? And I'm getting nodding heads. Okay. That's called DAS, Direct Accessible Storage. I mean, you plugged it in directly into the computer. NAS stands for Network Attached Storage. In other words, those storage devices, those hard drives or SSDs, you reach them through your network, either your local area network or through a wide area network or through the internet. Okay. So Apple users typically connect to their NAS data. So this is, you've already got a NAS device and you want to get some data, maybe it's music or a photo or it's some document you're working on, and your NAS is working as a file server. Typically, the way you would get to that is either through a web browser, the Mac OS Finder, or the Files app on iPhones and tablets. Okay. The reason why I threw web browser in there is that one of the neat things you can do with a network device, network storage device, is have it where you can access it securely through the internet. So your NAS is sitting at home, you're doing a photo shoot outside of the Grand Canyon, or let's say Utah, then you get back to the motel, you have access to the internet, and you could securely connect to your NAS storage device at home and put the copies of those photos on your NAS at home for later use. Conversely, if there's something you forgot, like the address for someone that you're going to visit, you could connect to your NAS and be able to look up that address and be able to find out, where are they located. Okay. last one, NAS setup and administration. So that's how you would use it through the Finder or through the Files app. But how do you administer it? How do you set this thing up? That's typically done either through a web browser, just like you would administer a router or a gateway device, or through a special app. Some of the manufacturers of NAS devices have created applications where you can administer them directly from your iPhone or your tablet, your iPad. The really good ones have apps where you can administer it from your Android phone, your Apple phone, your Android tablet, your Apple tablet, your Linux computer, your Windows computer, or your Mac computer. Those are the really good ones. In other words, they're supporting all of your devices. Okay, so a blast from the past. How many of you remember airport time capsule? Raise your hand, Rita. Okay. So it was introduced in 2008. It was a gateway, a Wi-Fi router, and it had a hard drive in it. And it was discontinued in 2013. Apple doesn't make these anymore. And Apple called it the ultimate backup appliance because if you had more than one Apple device, you could back it up using Time Machine to the time capsule. Or you could set it up as a network storage device. So a hard drive that's attached to the network, and you could open it up and put stuff in it from any of your computers. You could use it as a common file server. Now, anybody want to guess what the #1 use for NAS's, a network storage device is? Backup. Backup. That's what most businesses use them for. That's what most people use them for. So we'll move forward. So what can you do with a NAS? iPad, iPhone, or Mac backup, either using a third-party program or Time Machine. I'm sort of putting air quotes around Time Machine because that's one of the things you need to check. Does this device support Time Machine? Okay, we'll get into more about what you need to know to select the NAS. File storage and sharing. So in other words, you could have this remote hard drive. Anybody in your household would be able to access it, put files on, so that, let's say you use more than one computer, or you use your tablet to edit documents. You could open the document on the file server, edit it on your tablet. Later on in the day, you're down by your MacBook Air, you open up the document from the file server, edit it, or you're on your iMac later on and you make your final changes. So that's called file sharing and storage. The next one is photos. Okay. One of the problems that people have in the digital age is we take lots of photos, we never seem to go back to look at them and to vet out the ones that we want or don't want, and we don't have a very good way of documenting where we were, what we did, et cetera, et cetera. Now, Apple's solution to that was to put in facial recognition and metadata filters in their photo program. iPhoto originally, and later on, just plain old photos. But it doesn't solve the problem of you've got a relatively small amount of storage on your laptop or your hard drive, and you've got a lot of photos. Apple's solution to that was to use iCloud Photos, where you're saving them in their iCloud. And you get so much free, and just like a drug dealer, you know, the first taste is free, but once you reach a certain point, they charge you for additional storage. iCloud, Google Gmail, Microsoft OneDrive, Dropbox, those are all web instead of doing that and having your phone tell you constantly that, you've used up all the space, or you need to buy more space up on iCloud Photo, why not have your own network storage device where your photos get synced and saved instead of to iPhoto iCloud, or Google Photos, or Amazon Photos, or any of the other services that are out there where they'll charge you for the extra space. Some manufacturers of NAS devices have special programs to handle photos in the same way that iPhoto and Photos does. Facial recognition, automatic collection into location that it was taken, who's in it, etc. But not all NAS manufacturers have those programs. So just something to keep in your mind. The next one would be music storage and sharing. Okay. We're finding very quickly that our music won't fit on our laptop. We've got more music than we have. Or conversely, we're using a set of third-party speakers, like Sonos speakers or the Kia speakers, where iTunes doesn't necessarily work well with it. Almost all NASs that have music apps work very well with things like Sonos and Volumno, and I forget some of the other music streaming services that are out there. Another one would be video storage and sharing. And there they talk about media streaming. So you've got a large screen TV, you've got all of these movies that you bought that are already in digital form, and you don't want to watch it on the laptop or on the iMac, you'd rather watch it on the large screen TV. Well, with a NAS and a set-top box, and many TVs already have this stuff built in, you can browse your video collection directly from the remote on your TV and be able to select and play the video that you want without having to go out via the internet and stream it in. Those people who are on internet cell phone connections for their internet, that's a real game changer, because it means that their cell phone bills can be significantly reduced because they're watching the stuff that they already have locally instead of bringing it in from outside. And then secure private cloud. So you've got iCloud, you've got Google Drive, you've got Microsoft OneDrive, you've got Dropbox, you've got Box. There's all sorts of there's all sorts of storage services available that you can purchase on the internet. But instead of paying a monthly fee, wouldn't it make more sense to set up your own private cloud? And that's one of the things that you can also do with a NAS. And then the last one is and or some combination of the above. In other words, you can have your NAS vending photos and sharing them over the internet. You could be doing media streaming inside your household. You could be doing file storage. You could be using it to back up your iPad, your Macs, and your iPhones instead of using iCloud backup for a lot of those things. And this one device could be doing all of that and much, much more, but I'm not going to go into those. Okay, I'm going to stop for just a second. We got any questions at this point? George Rainburn.
I do not use iCloud. I don't even want the free megabits.
Yeah.
I want to know how to turn it off. They pester me to death with your iCloud thing is full, and
Okay.
I'd like to turn it, just completely eliminate iCloud from my system.
Okay. You can turn off iCloud Drive by going to your system preferences, clicking on iCloud, and this is on a Mac, clicking on iCloud and unchecking the iCloud Drive box. By default, iCloud Drive is turned on. Anything on your desktop or in your documents folder gets copied up there. And in some cases, removed from your Mac. So if you're going to do that, the first thing I would do is to make sure that anything I had on my desktop or on my documents folder is saved on a external storage device. I've got a copy out there. Then turn it off, and it's, depending on what version of the operating system of Mac OS, it may or may not give you a dialog box saying, do you wish to keep the files on your machine? Okay. In iOS, you're my verifier, Rick. In iOS, you would go into your preferences, and from there, if you're running a newer iOS, you would tap on that first thing, which is your name in that, and it would go in from that, and you can see whether your setup should be doing iCloud Drive or Mail or Notes and such, and you can turn off iCloud Drive there. The thing I would not turn off is iCloud Backup on mobile devices, because that's doing something different than saving copies of data. The other thing I would do, if you really don't want to be doing cloud services, is I would turn off iCloud Photos. Okay. And I would turn on, I'm trying to remember what the, what's the legacy service where it's syncing with your main computer?
Is it called images or something? It's an app.
Anyway, but there's another way where you can have it where instead of your phone automatically saving stuff in the cloud, when you're home and it can see your computer, it'll save it to your computer's hard drive and the Photos app that's running. Okay? Okay. Yeah, I know. It's tough. The other thing, just to be aware, is that if you do an operating system update, by default, all this stuff gets turned on again. So that's one of the first things you do if you don't want to have cloud services. Okay, Mark, you're watching the Zoom. Do we have any questions from the folks out there? No. Okay, so I'm going to talk about the people who make NAS devices. Okay, you have Asus, which is known as a PC manufacturing laptop. They have the Asus Store RAID devices, NAS devices. You have Buffalo, you have Drobo, you have QNAP, you have Promise, Synology, TerraMaster, and Western Digital. The two that I would warn you away from right out of the box is Drobo, because they're in bankruptcy. Okay. One of the things to remember about NAS devices, they're network appliances. These things tend to work for quite a few years. I know someone who's got a Synology, the original Synology J series drive, and that was from like 2001, and it's just cranking along to this day, without a hiccup. So Drobo is a no-go, my personal opinion. The other one is Promise. They have discontinued their consumer NAS devices. They focus just on high-capacity enterprise devices. So if you don't have a server rack in your garage or basement, or you're not running a data warehouse, Promise is not where you want to be. Okay, moving right along. Things to consider before you buy a NAS. Okay, so the first thing is, how much storage do you need? So let's say your simple situation, you're just going to use it to do time machine backups. Let's say you've got a laptop and you've got a desktop machine from Apple. Let's say an iMac and a MacBook Air. You've got half a terabyte of storage on the laptop. You've got 2 terabytes of storage on the iMac. rule of thumb is add up the total storage, not what you're using, but the total storage on the device, all your devices, so that would be 2.5 terabytes, and then multiply it by 2. So that would be 5 terabytes of data that would be storage that would be needed. Now, something else I want to just mention here, and that is NAS devices can have more than one hard drive, and most of them do. If they have 2 hard drives, prudent people set it up to do what's called mirroring. In other words, whatever's written to the storage device is written to both drives. You've got 2 copies. So if one of the hard drives dies, you still have your data. For those who have enough money for a unit with more capacity, they'll get a RAID that has 4 drives. So there's 4 drive bays. You can put in up to 4 drives. You would populate at least 3 of those with hard drives, and that's called RAID. And with RAID, the minimum RAID, if you lose one hard drive, you lose no data. You just pop out that hard drive, pop in a replacement, and it rebuilds and your data is still there. There are other levels of RAID. So if you have 4 hard drives and you have the direct bays all populated, you can set up a higher level of RAID, which means that if you lose 2 hard drives, you still haven't lost any data. And then there's the set that have 5 bays, and the ones that have 8 bays, and the ones that have 16, and the ones that have 24, and it goes up from there. Once you get above a 4-bay system, there's no more overhead. Everything you add in terms of a hard drive is going to be more storage, as opposed to overhead for security and safety redundancy. Okay, next thing to consider. Do you want features or simplicity? In other words, do you want a Microsoft Windows experience or an Apple experience? Okay, Apple makes it simpler, but you can't always change things. Microsoft lets you have granularity, but heaven help you if you make a mistake. Okay, so that's something to think about. Next, are you going to access the NAS just at your home or other places? And home can also be if you're running a small business. In other words, is it just going to be on your local area network, or do you want to be able to access it from other places via the internet? Okay. Next question. How important is security to you? So some of those NAS devices that have their own programs that you use, in other words, they make the computer, the NAS device, and they make the software that runs it, are inherently going to be more secure than those NAS manufacturers where they make the hardware and then there's all these third-party apps that you buy and use. Because they typically have no control over those third-party apps, and you don't know whether they're properly written or not, whether they're secure or not. And the other thing is the interface will be different on each one of those third-party apps. Or do you want something that's more like an Apple solution, where the programs that are available to use on the NAS are either from the NAS manufacturer, they maintain it, or they're third-party apps that they vet. Okay, so it's like Apple does in the Apple App Store. Next one. Does the NAS support Apple operating systems and Time Machine? You buy a NAS, you want to use Time Machine on it. Well, not all NASs made support Time Machine. Not all NASs support Apple equipment. So you want to make sure the vendor that you're picking out understands Mac. And then the last one, NAS devices last a long time. will that company still support your NAS down the road? Will they still be in existence down the road? Now, I'm going to just throw in one little anyway, whatever the word is. And that is, you don't have to buy a NAS from a manufacturer. You do have the do-it-yourself option. I don't recommend it for most Mac users. Okay? Most Mac users want to have a nice, clean, easy-to-use, secure, concise solution. They don't want to have to fix or repair on a daily basis. So, I have done my own network devices. I have one that's based on Microsoft Server. I have another one that is a Raspberry Pi that is using a thing that's called, well, it's a variation of FreeNAS, TrueNAS. These are not for people who don't want to work in command line. These are not for people who don't want to program. Okay, so the do-it-yourself option is there, but I don't recommend it to the average Mac user. Okay, we have any other questions at this point? Yes?
Okay, this isn't about the NAS, but
Yep.
you said Raspberry Pi, and things I've read and a few people I've talked to, they're always talking about Raspberry Pi. What the hell is Raspberry Pi?
A Raspberry Pi is what's called a single board computer, SBC. It's about the size of a pack of cigarettes. Okay, it would fit in my shirt pocket. Okay, it is a full-blown, the current model of the Raspberry Pi is a full-blown computer on a board that big. It has Wi-Fi on it, it's got an Ethernet port on it, it's got 4 USB ports on it, and it can run a variety of different operating systems. They use HDMI, because you're going to use a TV as your screen, and you would use a standard PC keyboard and mouse. If you would like to play with one, because I have what my wife refers to as the girls. I've got 8 Raspberry Pis that are doing various things in our household, and I have a couple extra that are swapping spares. So
Now, I just wanted to know what it was.
they are really, really neat to use in a school environment, because you can basically output a computer lab for 20, they cost, well, before the supply chain issues, a Raspberry Pi would cost about $65 total. Okay, and if you bought the ones that are built into a keyboard, like the old Commodore computers were, that would be like $100. So if you got 30 kids, multiply that 100 times 30, boom, you've got a computer lab. And use TVs that are around. They are really, really neat things, but normally I'm not allowed to talk about those in an Apple user group. Okay, anybody else? Any other questions? Okay, moving right on. Okay, so, bottom line. Originally, I was going to go through and say, okay, this model from this manufacturer, and this model from this manufacturer, et cetera, like I did with printers. And then I went, no, you don't want to do that. If you're interested in getting a NAS for your particular situation, let's have a conversation. Because I think I know enough, having used these for more years than I care to contemplate. I can steer you in the right direction. But just in terms of general, this is my bottom line, my opinion. QNAP and Western Digital, they're too complicated and they have security issues. Okay. Yes, Western Digital, I do not recommend. Even their hard drives, I don't recommend anymore. Asus, huh?
Excuse me,
Yep.
why don't you recommend their hard drives?
Because they started cheaping out on the manufacturing process.
Oh,
They
they're not
had
reliable.
quality control issues, and they cheaped on the design that's used in business applications, and when people ran the benchmarks, they caught them at it. So if you're going to put drives into a NAS, I currently recommend Seagate Iron Wolf hard drives. They are NAS hard drives, and they're made for network devices. So you don't want to just take a Western Digital black or blue hard drive and just slam it into a NAS. It's not going to perform in that environment. Remember, a network appliance is on 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, so it's always running. So laptop drives, don't assume you're going to always be running. They don't have the durability that the NAS drives have.
You said Seagate-
Drobo, yep, go
you
ahead.
said Seagate Iron Wolf.
Iron Wolf.
That's a
As
specific
in,
NAS.
you know, bad wolf.
Their enterprise drive.
Right.
That would be
Well,
the
there's a
Pro.
Pro.
I don't buy the enterprise drives except when they're on sale. Sometimes the Iron Wolf enterprise drives cost less than the regular Iron Wolf with the same capacity.
I didn't realize there were two kinds of Iron Wolf. I thought all of the Iron Wolf ones.
There's actually 3 different kinds of Iron Wolves that are meant for NAS devices. There are also the hard drives that are meant for surveillance systems and other ones that are specific to embedded systems. So there's, in Western Digital, they have the different colors. So the red would be for the NAS, the purple is for surveillance systems, the blue and the black are for desktop machines and laptop machines, and then I don't remember what the gold is for. Maybe I think it's for video editing, video ratings. Okay. Anyway, moving right along. Drobo, it looks like they're going to go out of business, so I don't recommend that you purchase any of their stuff. Promises left the consumer market, and the last one is Synology. Now again, I want to remind you, this is my personal opinion, may not be worth spit. But to me, Synology is the company that is the true leader with NAS devices right now. They have consumer NAS devices and enterprise, and they have different levels of consumer devices and different level of enterprise devices. So they have, well, I'll go into that a little bit more, but the thing that really I like about Synology is it works with Apple, it works with Android, it works with Linux, it works with Microsoft. Their operating system, DSM, which is Disk Station Manager, okay, that is their own operating system, and they do maintain it. The other thing is they have apps on the Apple App Store for your iOS devices. So you can download from Synology via the Apple App Store their app for photo management, their app for file sharing, their app for media sharing, etc. They have similar apps for the folks that are doing Google and Android. They have other apps for the folks that are doing Microsoft. And what's most important to me, if I'm just on a regular old Mac, let's say something running Snow way back in the day, and I bring up Finder and I look on my network, I can use a network storage device from Synology and be able to share files because they still support the Apple File Protocol, which many of the other manufacturers don't. So I consider them to be an industry leader, and their competitors, in a snarky tone, refer to them as the Apple of network appliances. Now, they don't just make RAID NASs, they also make other network equipment like gateways and Wi-Fi routers and other devices like that, and fiber, I don't remember what they call gateways that are fiber-based. So they're not just making one type of thing, they're a little bit broader of a market share. And again, they're doing business like Cisco quality business. and they're doing the consumer stuff still.
Where do you buy one of these if you want to buy them?
They're on Amazon.
Amazon, B&H Photo, Best Buy, Newegg, let me think, give me another, Staples, Home Office, Office Max. Okay.
All of them, okay.
Okay, so, yeah. Now, typically you buy a NAS with no hard drives in it. The reason why you do that is because if you buy it populated by the manufacturer, they're going to charge you premium prices for those hard drives. Example, if I buy a Synology NAS and I'm using Synology hard drives, 4 terabyte, they're going to charge me about $130 for a 4 terabyte hard drive. Okay. If I go onto Amazon and I look at Seagate Iron Wolf hard drives, 4 terabyte, I can usually purchase those around $70, $70 to $80 each. So that's almost $50 that you save by buying the hard drives yourself. The other thing to keep in mind is if you're buying a unit that has more than one hard drive bay, typically you start out easy and simple. You just populate those first 2 bays, learn how to use the device, get it set up, and then as you need more storage, you add more hard drives. Well, guess what I've learned over time? What was the cheapest, most cost-effective thing today is usually not what's most cost-effective tomorrow. So for example, I can buy an Iron Wolf 4 terabyte NAS drive, Iron Wolf, for less than a 1 terabyte Seagate Iron Wolf.
If you can find a 1 terabyte.
Yeah, if you can find them, because they're not necessarily being manufactured anymore. And it would be cheaper than a 2 terabyte. It would be cheaper than a 2 terabyte. But if I go to a 6 terabyte or an 8 terabyte, then the cost per terabyte is going to go up. But in the future, I know that the 8 terabyte hard drive is going to be the sweet spot. And you'll be able to buy those for $70 or $80. So you buy the storage that you need now and leave those other bays open for use in the future. One of the things that I really like about Synology is I don't have to have the same size, make, and model of hard drive in each one of those bays. In other words, I can mix and match. It's called Synology Hybrid Technology. It is very similar to the technology that Drobo had, but it was developed independently. So they're not paying any money to Drobo for it. So with that said, let me just show you the 3 Synology drives that I think are pretty sweet. The first one, these are all consumer drives, not enterprise. So the first one is the Synology DS220J, and it's about $200 on Amazon. I've seen it for less. I've seen it as low as $160. It's got 2 hard drive bays in it, but they're not hot swappable. You have to actually open up the case, mount the hard drives, like you would mount them in a computer. And typically you're going to put 2 hard drives, same make, manufacturer in there, and set it up to mirror, so that if one of the drives dies, the other one still has your data. That's $200, and then figure if you're putting in 2 Seagate 4 terabytes, it'd be another $160 for the drives. Next model up. Notice Synology, their low-end, really inexpensive drives are white. Guess who they sell a lot of those to? Apple users. Because they see that white case and they think of Apple. And the next step up, now we're talking the DS Plus series. So it's actually 2 steps up. This is the DS220 NAS, $300. Again, it's got hard drives that you actually have to mount inside. They're not they're not hot swappable. $300 for the device, and it has additional Ethernet ports on the back, and it's got a nice USB port in the front. A very nice feature if you're doing photos, because you've got your card from your camera. It's in a little USB holder. You plug it in the front. You can directly back up from that into the NAS unit using that USB in the front. And then it has USB ports on the back too. And then if you want to go up even farther, a Synology DS418 NAS. It's got 4 hot swappable hard drive bays, and it's about $400. This particular unit can run the latest and greatest operating system from Synology, which is DSM 7.1, and it can also do network stuff. It can be your DNS server. It can be running ad blocking. You can run a website off of it. So it's got other capabilities. VPN, all kinds of stuff. It's the right balance between cost and performance. So if you had an organization, hypothetically, let's say a computer user group, and you've got somebody that videotapes the meetings and he puts them up on YouTube, and you want to have all those YouTube videos backed up, you might purchase a device like this. Or let's say you want to have your counsel being able to access confidential things like bank statements without having to email them back and forth. You might purchase a device like this. So we're thinking about buying one for the group that would basically be our main storage point for all of our tech notes and other things that we have. And I think we could actually provide some additional benefit for the members. So again, $400 if it's not on sale. I've seen them as low as $320. And, so maybe you do it on one of the, what do they call the Amazon sales?
Prime Day.
Yeah, Amazon Prime Day. You'll see something like this go down to $310. One last little thing about Synology's naming this thing. So you had Synology DS J series. That's the bottom consumer. Then the DS series is one level above, and then one level above that is the DS Plus. Okay. The 3-digit numbers, 4-digit numbers, the first one after the letter DS tells you how many hard drives can be attached to this unit. So in this case, a DS418, it means that it's middle tier consumer NAS device. It's got 4 hard drive bays, and it was released in 2018, the model. Okay, more information than most people want. Okay, so now we'll open it up for discussions, and we've got plenty of time here.
The drives that go into a device like that, how do they have to be configured? I mean, formatted? Do they have to be formatted FAT, like compatible with Microsoft systems? Can they have the Apple file system?
This is where the wonder of the operating system that's running the device comes in. It's formatted the way the device needs to have it formatted,
So you
depending on what kind of
put it in,
base
you
structure.
just put it in there and you format it through
But
its
when your
operating.
Mac is talking to the device, it knows it's talking to a Mac. And so it does whatever translation it needs to do with that file format when it sends it to you. And when you're on a PC and you're talking to the same device, it'll send that file so that a PC will understand it running a Mac, a Microsoft operating system. And if you're on your Google Android phone and you're using your app to bring a file into your phone, it's going to send it to it so that Google Android phone can understand it. And if you're on an iPhone, so that your iPhone can understand it.
It's translating it, but
Correct.
the drive physically, does it get formatted through the DSM system that
Yes.
Synology has
Yes.
in the NAS?
And it's going to have, it may have a slightly different formatting, depending on whether you're doing JBOD, four-letter acronym, just a bunch of disks. If I run it as a JBOD system and I've got 4
Independent.
drives in it, it sees 4 hard drives. Okay, and JBOD says, okay, I can take those 4 hard drives and make by magic appear as if it's just one really big hard drive. Okay, but there's no data protection there. But if I'm doing mirroring, okay, it's going to use probably on a Synology device, they're probably going to be using standard CFS or BTFS.
Those are RAID, that's the RAID configuration.
Correct, because mirroring is RAID 1.
Right.
That's the lowest level of RAID. If I'm doing RAID 3, 5, or 6, it'll switch over to the BTFS format on a Synology device so that you have that RAID protection. Other manufacturers will have those internal hard drives formatted with either NTFS, which is a Microsoft format, or they may have it formatted, there's another new file format that Microsoft uses on servers, and I don't remember the acronym for it. So the problem with those other manufacturers are they may not support Mac. So they're fine if you're doing Windows, Microsoft Surface tablet to it, or Microsoft 10 or 11 to it. It's not going to work well with an Apple device or an Android device. So again, that's one of the reasons I really like Synology. They put in a lot of money to make sure that the programs that come with this device enhance the user experience and don't frustrate you. It's truly amazing the number of things you can do with one of these. So for those of you who are into virtualization, I know of organizations that are using NAS devices just as virtualization machines. They'll have virtualized Proxmox devices that are emulating mainframes that they don't want to use the mainframe anymore. Or let's say the software was written to run on the mainframe, so they've got a virtualized machine that looks like it's the mainframe. They can run their COBOL and their Snowball and their Watt 4 and Watt 5 compilers on it, but it's actually running off of a NAS. Sometimes the computer boards on these things are impressive. They'll be 2-core and 4-core machines if you're going to be doing virtualization. For the low-end consumer stuff, they typically are going to be the either the Celeron or the Realtek processors, and they're perfectly adequate for vending files and vending media.
That was way more than I was asking.
Yeah, I know.
You asked what time it was, we told you how to build a watch.
I have a question,
Yes.
very simple question. Seagate, Iron Wolf, or, if I have other independent hard drives I want to put in a NAS system, are they all configured? Mine are configured for solid-state drives, but everything
Solid-state drives are fine, except remember this, solid-state drives, typically you see solid-state drives put into NASs if they require a lot of throughput. The example I would use is a Jellyfish, which HOWC makes, which is all solid-state drives, and it's meant for video transcoding. So you're doing 4K video, and you need to rip that, into the appropriate format. Yeah, you'd be using something like that, and you'd be using solid-state drives. If it's just a file server,
That's different.
yeah, you could use solid-state drives, but remember, a 4 terabyte solid-state drive is not going to cost you $70. It's going to cost you a lot more than that.
Well, let me tell you,
Yeah.
in the world of music where I am, it's gotta sound stupid, but solid state drives sound better because there's less moving parts.
No, that doesn't sound stupid at all.
So,
I still have cordial relationships with audiophiles. I mean, these are the folks, they've got, they're going with this tube amplifier, okay? And when they play their vinyl records, they're using a custom-built, what used to be a laser disc box. It's now been configured to read vinyl records. I mean, you're talking, that's, 30K right there for that box. And then you say, well, how many records do you have? Because they're all in the vinyl, they're not in the CDs. And then they open the record library doors, and you walk in and you go, you must have, 18,000 albums in here? And you go, well, how do you play them off of the vinyl? Well, sometimes they do, but almost always they've paid somebody to rip their entire collection to digital files that they use. And they're doing OGG, Vorbis, and FLAC, not MP3. So,
I don't even know what MP3 is, so.
okay,
No, I do, I'm just.
okay. So are you a composer, or you?
No, I'm just an avid
Okay.
audiophile.
Do you use Sonos systems at all?
Hell
Okay. So, one of the reasons why I'm going to buy a manufactured NAS is because I know that Synology and their music sharing app work very well with Sonos.
Yeah, I don't do.
Where iTunes and I'm trying to remember what the Windows Media Player. What's the high-end Microsoft app for music playing now? It may be called like music.
I don't use any of those.
Anyway,
I use separate apps.
they don't necessarily handle anything other than MP3 very well.
Right.
And so I have a collection of about 58,000 songs. Okay. And a lot of that has to do with way back when I was part owner of a radio station. We had the gold discs that would come in that we would use. So I ripped all those. I've got a fairly large. If you like doo-wop, I'm your man. I got doo-wop. Okay, anybody else? Any other questions?
Hey, Bill?
Yeah.
Bill, did you point out that in a NAS, you have to put the same size drives and I believe the same type or manufacturer drives in a NAS for it to work, especially if you're doing a RAID?
That's true with most manufacturers other than Drobo and Synology. The newer Synology RAIDs do what's called Synology Hybrid, and you can mix and match. They don't recommend it, but you can do that.
I just went through, I have one Synology NAS that has 4 drives in it. One of them went bad. So of course I had to replace it, which was fine. I'm not thrilled with the drives that came in it. They're Western Digital, but I replaced it, went right through probably in 4 to 6 hours. Not only had it fixed everything, but cleaned out junk files and stuff. They are very good NAS. I've had Western Digital. I will never buy a Western Digital NAS again.
question, what year is your NAS?
I just looked that up, and I bought her at B&H, and I evidently bought it around 2017, so she's got a bit of age. I have a newer one, and I honestly don't know what year that was bought.
The Synology hybrid technology, I believe, appeared in the DS Plus series in 2020. I know the 2022 models haven't.
Yeah, I'm looking at one now. All I gotta do is cough up about $2,200
Yeah.
cost. Yeah. And that's for an 80 gig.
Okay. So again, you know, if you're buying enterprise quality NASs, it's not unusual to be spending $15,000, $20,000. But I
Correct.
would remind you, all of us, that you typically don't need an enterprise quality NAS to handle your time machine backup of your iMac and to handle the maybe 2,000, 3,000 photos you have and maybe 200 gigabytes of music that you have. You know, you can get along quite well on a, let me go back here, DS220J with 2 hard drives in it. So like 2 4 terabyte hard drives. Yeah, 4 terabytes, that'll be more than enough to get you where you want to be. It's only if you're doing virtualization and other things that you really need to think about having a higher powered NAS device and more storage.
Yeah, this is work storage.
Do you maintain your NAS only on your local area network, or do you do internet access through it?
I only do local. I don't need to be seeing it on the internet.
Okay.
It can be done, I just don't set it up.
So one of the things that I've seen in a corporate environment is using a network device like a Synology NAS to be your VPN server and to hold the data that corporate wants to vend via the internet. And it's all done via VPN, and it's all done on the one device.
This is Lisa Clevenger, by the way, who was talking.
Yeah. So, any other comments?
What about connectivity if you wanted a daisy chain?
Say that again.
What about connectivity if you wanted to daisy chain them? Is it still seen as one
Okay.
drive?
There is a unit comparable to this one, the DS220 Plus. It's the DS920 Plus. The 9 indicates that you can have up to 9 drives attached to it. The 4 bays that are in it, and you can buy an add-on unit that then connects via either eSATA or 10 gigabit Ethernet. It depends on the configuration. And I don't want to just say Synology, but most of them have additional units that you can then daisy chain.
Is it visible as one drive? So,
Yeah, you can make it so it's all one virtual volume, even though it's on 2 separate devices. Conversely, you can take it so you've got one big visible, one big volume, but you have it set up so this folder is for photos and it's run by this particular program and it's only allowed this much space of the whole big volume. And over here, this is the share that's accessible via the internet, and only the stuff that's in that share can be accessed there. And this part is used for a virtual machine, and this part is used as your VP, it's running VPN, et cetera, et cetera. So, in many ways, it's much easier to connect them than it used to be with the old Drobos. They never really had a good eSATA connection for Drobos. Yet they'd always upsell you to the next one up with more.
you mentioned OWC for Jellyfish, but I've been pretty happy with their Mercury Elite product, which is
mentioned jellyfish is because when I was doing research for the presentation, I was on YouTube and I kept seeing the jellyfish ad from OWC and it's like burned into my brain. I don't do video rendering, so I don't know if it's actually a wonderful thing or not, but if OWC says it's a wonderful thing, obviously it must be. I mean, snarky for those that can't see my facial.
I use their Thunderbolt 3 devices for video.
I'm not sure whether the jellyfish thing that they sell is Thunderbolt or what. Yeah. All I know is they had, in the one picture, they had what do they call the chunky from Mac, the one that you just bought? The Studio, Mac Studio.
Oh, yeah.
They had one of those Mac Studios and there were like 4 monitors up there. And I'm thinking, this guy doesn't know what he's doing because, you know, he's got too many controls. Anyway, the thing I want you to take away from this is if you've got multiple devices in your household and you are constantly having to put a file on a flash drive to hand to your coworker at home, you might think about network storage. If you are using anything from Apple, like an Airport Extreme or a time capsule to do your backup now, I would strongly recommend that you think about replacing those units with either individual connected hard drives to do your time machine backups or moving to something other than an Apple solution. There's a little ticking time bomb with most of the Apple time capsules. They were using Seagate drives that don't perform well after many years in the high temperature environment of an airport time capsule. There's some little things you can do to eke out more life from them, and it involves running them upside down, taking the rubber coating off, and then with the cubes, those just, you know they're going to fail within another 4 to 5 years. So if you're running airport time capsules, you might want to consider something like a DS220J NAS or the OneDrive DS120J, which I think is like $99. But then you don't have redundancy of data. This is just a time machine backup. The original data is on your computer. The backup's on the RAID device. Okay. Yes.
Or you could just start saving stuff.
That's true, you could stop saving. However, I have a life partner who has decided that she is going to be doing more photography. And so she's out there with her camera and her tripod, and she goes on trips very similar to the ones that Rick Cartwright does, where she's taking pictures out in the wild. And then she comes back and she has all of these cards of photos. Well, you put them on the iMac, and she's running her Photoshop and, not Photoshop, Lightroom, and the other stuff for it. But then she wants to make sure that they are safe, because that's the one that won the prize with Tripod, or it's a local
Well,
photographer.
I understand that, and so if you're into an amateur or you're a professional, whatever, or want to be,
Yeah.
I understand that, but, I can take my hard drive from one of my 5 units and unplug it and plug it into the other computer and transfer files.
Correct.
I can do that, or I can do what you do with your closet, or should do every 3 years, things you haven't worn, you throw away.
Correct.
I mean, at some point, it just seems like it feeds on itself, and we all know that with our garages and our everything.
So I'm going to go back to that first
You know.
sentence I said, with that second slide. I am not here to sell you more
Yeah.
stuff. I'm here to educate, illuminate, illustrate,
Right. Now,
widen your horizons.
I do see the benefits, like my son is a national salesperson, and so it would be really nice to access things that he has from any point since he's on the road a great deal. So, I mean, I definitely see the advantages to this, and I see that having your own is an advantage to paying for extra storage.
But it's just
But
like.
some of us, at least me, you know, I don't mind walking my hard drive or my flash drive, or even sending Dan an email upstairs.
And I'm
It's
right
just-
there with you.
Okay.
You know, I'll be out and I'll go, wow, that's a really beautiful Peterson 18-wheeler. Oh, man, look at that cab, et cetera, et cetera. I may admire it, I may understand the utility of the vehicle.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean I'm gonna go out and buy one.
Yeah,
Well, the other thing, this doesn't solve the off-site backup issue. You know, this is still local backup
yeah.
in your house, and if a fire comes along, God forbid,
Sure.
or flooding, you know, there's all kinds of natural
Okay.
disasters that.
There is a company called
White
IO
Hat, so-
Safe that makes network storage access devices that are inside fireproof enclosures. So it's like your Sentry Fire Safe, but it's got a RAID device inside.
That's one approach.
That's one approach.
I don't
The
know how they
other
do
one-
that, since you have to still have wires and stuff going into the box.
Well, in this case, the box itself is the enclosure, is in.
Yeah, but if you're on an Ethernet network in your house, then an Ethernet cable has to get inside that box somehow.
That's correct, but it's designed for that.
Okay.
Okay, the other way to go is off-site backup. And with, okay, I gotta be careful what I say here. Previous employer, they had these things in all of their locations. And we would be doing, the folks over in the Middle East, their NASs, Synology NASs, were able to back up data to NASs in North America and in South America. Okay, and they would do this on a continuous basis. So they were like making their own Google Drive that's in more than one continent. And they were using the Synology Backup Pro software that you can buy for the Synology drives. And originally they were using prosumer drives, and then eventually they went up to an enterprise.
Yeah, but for us, okay, at our level, consumer level, to get the off-site copy of our
When
data.
my dad was still
It may
alive,
be cheaper.
when my dad was still alive, he was up in Chicago, and I had it set up so that his iMac would automatically back up to a storage device I had in the basement of my house in
Oh, that's
Sept.
nice.
And it would do that on a daily basis.
Oh, that's great. By the way, may I ask a question off
Sure.
topic?
I'm going to say,
I got an interesting email from MacPaw because they kept asking me to re-enter my serial number and everything, and they finally got back to me, and it was poignant, and that's the only reason I bring it up here. And don't know where they are in Ukraine, but they wanted to tell me that, you know, their staff was safe,
yes,
that they were doing everything they
Yes.
could to protect them, and the software that runs my program to clean my Mac, and my heart just went out to them because they were really kind of pouring it out in
I'm a
terms
beta
of.
tester for MacPaw.
Yeah, I
And
knew
so
you
I know
were.
these people.
Yeah, and it just, it's sad, but when I finally had to realize, oh my God, I'm using a program that, you know, they're under siege, and
Yeah.
it was nice of them to get back to me.
If you do Sept, which is their appliance store, application store, and you have access to all their apps for like $99 a year. They have one little group, and it's all the apps that are from Ukrainian
Yeah.
programmers. My understanding is most of them have relocated. They're not where they were because the area they were is no longer in Ukrainian control.
Oh, dear.
And most of them relocated because their houses had been bombed out or shelled out. So they're either over, some of them relocated to Poland, some of them relocated to France, some of them relocated to, because they have a America office, some of them are now in the US. Okay. There's still, the facilities manager is still there in Russian-controlled territory. So just watch over the building. The building has not gotten rocketed out, so, you know. But of course, most of the stuff they were using they took their, you know. And they were using network-attached storage to save their business files. And
So I guess it did connect to our topic.
correct. Okay, so anyway, I'm going to Rick has a.
Real quick comment. I think it's interesting. This is really good. And I take a completely different tack on this. And you know that. I mean, I use a lot of cloud storage, including my offsite backup. And so there's some cost involved in that. I think when you're thinking about these things for your own personal thing, you have to sit back and think about the complexity, what it is you're trying to accomplish. I mean, I like the ability when I take pictures, which I do all over the place. They're immediately backed up to the cloud, immediately backed up to an offsite location. All that happens without me having to do anything. So every person's going to have a different perspective on this. I've used Drobo before. I had Drobo. I hate the thing now. It's just an anchor. If anybody wants it, you can have it. But there's just that each person's going to have to evaluate what works for them. And this would never work for me. It doesn't work for me no more. It used to work for me in the past. But there are people out there that this is the only way they would do it because they don't want clouds. They don't want anything in the cloud. But I love the cloud, and I find the cloud would make my life much easier and better. So, is it cheaper? I think it's not that much different in cost when you look over the life of the product. But those are numbers that each person has to run for themselves. I think it's really interesting. I think it's good. It's a good thing to cover this because we really need, each person has to make that decision.
One of the benefits that happens when somebody starts to look at a NAS solution is they have to look at what data do they actually have in the cloud.
Yep.
And they discover that, we've got the same photos replicated from my phone and her phone and her phone. And a lot of it is not real, it's, you took the 4 shots to make sure you got it, but only one of them is really the one you like.
Yeah, and I manage that another way. That's another topic.
Yeah,
I
that's
agree.
But the thing that's nice is by doing that review, before you purchased anything, you've gotten that benefit. But mostly it's for people that want to do media streaming, they've got multiple machines and they want to do backup in one place, and or they're running a small business where they need to keep those files safe. So if you're doing anything that's related to HIPAA, you're a radiologist, you don't want to be saving your stuff on the cloud unless it's HIPAA certified. Otherwise, you just did a federal felony. Same thing with lawyers and judges. Okay.
Thank you, Bill. It was very interesting.
All right.
It's so nice when you say that.
I really do need it.
Recording stopped.